It is my honor and my joy to welcome the first Black woman to be mayor of the great city of St. Louis, Missouri, Mayor Tishaura Jones. Welcome to Black History Month and welcome to my series on KMOX called Living History. It is so great to see you and talk to you again.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having me.
So you're mayor today, but you were once a 10-year-old little girl. Tell me about the girl, Tishaura.
Oh, wow. So as a 10-year-old little girl, I used to accompany my dad down here to the Board of Aldermen in City Hall, and I would sit in this chair and I'd spin around, or I'd step out on the balcony and I'd watch him and debate with our icons of our time, Wayman Smith, the Roberts brothers, Kenny Jones, Mike Jones, and I would just sit and watch in awe, but never thinking that I would be back in this building after he finished his term.
That has to be the next question. What did you want to do when you were growing up, if not become a politician like your father, Vervis Jones?
I wanted to be a model.
We can see it.
Best of both worlds, right? I wanted to be a model. I love fashion. I love, makeup, hair, as you can tell. And I wanted to a model. I was tall and lanky as a little girl as well. And even tried, took some pictures, sent them out in different places. They told me I was too commercial.
What?
Yeah, they told me I was too commercial. And so my dad was like, oh, well, you tried. So now you can go to school. You can leave that behind. But what I did do, I did model locally. So I did like some runway and freeze modeling in the mall. One time my cousin Joyce came up to me. I was freeze modeling for Hellsberg Diamonds. I'll never forget. And my cousin Joyce and her best friend Betty were walking through the mall, and they were standing there and looking at me because, freeze modeling is like, a mannequin.
Right.
And I had some sunglasses on to cover my eyes, and she leaned in a little too close, and then I had to break it. I said, hi, Joyce. And it scared her. So but yeah, that was my childhood dream.
So you're saying that your father never dissuaded you? He never said, girl, no, we are not modeling. You are going straight to college.
Yes, he did. That's what he said. That's cute, but I need you to go get a degree first.
And knowing Mr. Jones as I do, and I'm not his best friend or anything, but I know him well enough to know that he absolutely said, that's cute, but go on now.
Go on now.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Afton High School, Afton Senior High in South County. I was a DSEG kid. And I was
okay.
I was a cheerleader there. And I was on the student response team, and I was on the yearbook staff.
You were active.
Pretty active, yes.
Did you? In my family, we had to be. We were required to be involved in some way. Was that a requirement for you?
No, these were
But it was just expected?
Yeah, I just kind of gravitated to these activities. I don't remember why I wanted to be a cheerleader, though. I knew I didn't want to do sports. And I think I befriended our first Black cheerleader, Monique Epps. I remember becoming her friend, and she was an upperclassman, and I was just so inspired by her because she was smart and she was pretty and she was a cheerleader. And so I tried out and I made the squad.
What was DSEG like? You weren't the first wave of students, I don't believe, right?
I was part of maybe the second wave of students in the Hampton district. So I went out there in 5th grade. And I went mid-semester. So it was a little difficult, getting used to a new school in the middle of the semester. And my first few weeks weren't the greatest. One of my classmates called me the N-word. And my father had to come up to the school and, make sure that he was disciplined. And also, I think at the time I discovered that I couldn't see the class, I couldn't see the board. So I ended up getting glasses at that time too. So, just all of the things all at one time. Like the movie goes, everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes, exactly. So you're a tall, lanky Black girl from the city, 4 eyes.
4 eyes, right, and crooked teeth.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
so your achievements today are even are even more meaningful when we think about that fifth grade girl. But how hard? You said the first few weeks weren't hard. Did it?
The
When did
first
it get? Go ahead.
getting used to a new environment, new teacher, because I came from an all Black school. I was at Herzog Elementary in Walnut Park. And while this wasn't my first integrated school, this is my first integrated school in a while, because I started at New City and then went to St. Louis Public for a while, and then went back out, or went to another integrated school when I went to Afton. But getting used to a new teacher, the expectations were a lot different. Not that I had excellent teachers at Herzog, but I felt like it took me a while just to get in a rhythm,
Right.
because also I had to wake up early in the morning and get on a bus. I usually had to catch the bus by about 6:30, and it was still dark. And school didn't start till 8. And that bus went all the way around the city and picked up every kid in the city
Oh, wow.
who was going out to South County.
It's hard to know as a fifth grader. I mean, you're just raw emotions, like I want to be here or I don't. I miss my old school and my friends and my teachers.
Mhm.
And it's hard to know all the deep why. But did you feel all those things?
I did miss my friends, but one thing about spending 2 hours on a bus will do is you will make friends fast.
Yeah.
So the friends that I made on that bus ride every day are still my friends today.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
How long were you in the DSEG program? Through high school, or did you come back to the city?
Through high school, I graduated from Afton.
Oh my. And I say that, oh my, that sounds like, oh, that's too bad. I didn't mean that, but but that's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a long time. We moved from Walnut Park to South St. Louis when I was in high school, so that made my commute a little shorter. But still, still had to be up pretty early in the morning. But I will say that the faculty there, the staff there, everybody was really welcoming. They were really brave about making sure they paid attention to race relations and race issues. That was the student response team that I was on. And like I said, just being really honest about our conversations. But I will say that I had a counselor there who said I would never go to college. Um,
My
and then
goodness.
there was a counselor next door who was a Black man, Mr. Scoggins, actually, and I tell this story everywhere. My assigned counselor was a white woman. She said, "You don't have good enough grades to get into college," and I knew I wanted to go to college, so I went next door to Mr. Scoggins and I said, "Mr. Scoggins, I want to go to college and I don't know where to start." And so he said, "Well, there's a Black college fair coming up at St. Louis Community College in a couple of days. I want you to go to that, talk to the people that are there, bring me back the applications, and we'll work on them." And we did. And I applied to Hampton and Howard,
Two
and
HBCUs.
HBCUs. My daddy said I couldn't go to Howard. He said I could go to
Why?
world, but Howard. At the time, DC in the late 80s, early 90s
Ah,
was not a great place to be.
right. It wasn't safe. Yeah.
Right. It's not safe. So I went to Hampton, and he took me, for high school day, stepped on the campus, loved it, fell in love with the campus, and just fell in love with the people there. And I never regretted that decision.
Let me say that I wanted to go to Xavier, and my mother said the same thing to me. No, not safe.
New Orleans.
New Orleans, not safe.
Mhm.
And I just the other day, I saw someone with a Xavier sweatshirt on, and I had this pang of, I'm supposed to be wearing, and I'm 60 years old, Mayor Jones, and I'm still thinking about, I wanted to go there, and she said no, just like Mr. Jones said no. When did you know that you wanted to go to an HBCU, and why did you make that decision instead of, everybody in St. Louis goes to Mizzou or Rolla or?
I've been in a white environment for a long time, and I wanted to change. And it's nothing bad against Afton. It was a great school. It's a great environment, taught me, gave me a great foundation for study habits and study skills, but I wanted to change. And then at the time, I mean, think about what's going on in TV and in our media at the time. School Days had just come out with Spike
The
Lee.
Spike Lee movie.
Right. A Different World was on TV. And I was like, ooh, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I ever made. I love my university. I love going back for homecoming and graduation, and got a chance to do a keynote for our classes of 20 and 21 that didn't get an in-person graduation. So our president did like a graduation celebration, like a mock graduations. And I was the keynote speaker for that. So
How wonderful. And you majored in finance. Were you always good with numbers? And how was that decision made from the woman who wanted to be a model to then major in finance? I just love that.
I found that my senior year, I was really good at math, really good at algebra. So I decided to be a finance major. Thought I was going to be an investment banker after I graduated. That was short-lived as well. But was really good with numbers.
Which is not, I mean, most of us hear math and our hearts just kind of shake. Like, I know how to do percentages when something's on sale, but that's about it. So you're a rare breed, just in the country in general, because most Americans are not good at math, period.
Right. But I found that it was something I really liked to do. I didn't like accounting though. So accounting and finance are different, in my opinion. I say accountants count numbers, whereas finance, people who have finance degrees, we make the money. We find the way to get the money.
Got it.
Multiply it. And so that's the direction I saw it. Like I said, I thought I was going to be an investment banker. That was my first job out of college for about 6 months. That didn't last long. And then had a myriad of jobs, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I worked at TWA for a little while in reservations. My dad and I opened a restaurant that lasted for about 9 months. I worked in customer service. And then I found healthcare. I was an algebra tutor, of course. I tutored in St. Louis public schools for about a year or so. And then I found healthcare and found that I was able to marry like being a servant, serving people, but also using my business skills and helping people all at the same time. So I found healthcare administration, went into the finance department there, and then rose through leadership, went back and got my master's in health administration.
St. Louis University, correct?
University, the business of healthcare. Worked at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, but spent most of my healthcare career at the Betty Jean Kerr People's Health Centers. And Betty Jean Kerr herself was one of my mentors.
I just can't help but think that those things, those degrees and those experiences really help to inform you as an elected official, as I say elected official instead of politician, but elected official. And one who has focused a great deal on two things that I have observed in the many years that I have watched you and known you, and that is personal finance, right? And uplifting people.
Yeah.
All of those things, all of those experiences and degrees you seem to filter your service through that. Talk about how I may be correct in that.
Yeah, so personal finance, definitely, because I fell upon hard times myself. After my mother died and my father was in prison, I had no other choice but to file bankruptcy at one point in my life, because I was drowning in debt and, trying to take care of my mother. My dad was away, so I had no other choice. And I made a mission to myself, or made a promise to myself, that if I ever had a chance to help people who had either been there or who were coming out of that same rut, that I would try to help them. And that's why we started the Office of Financial Empowerment when I became treasurer. And also, I have several mantras, but one of them I live by is that there are not too many problems that more access to more money can't fix.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that I wanted to help children because, obviously I'm a mom. And I started the Children's Savings Program because I wanted to make sure that children had hope.
Right.
They matriculated through, from K to 12. And now that program is just still growing strong. Over 20,000 kids enrolled with almost $2 million saved for their futures.
That's
Um,
excellent.
and also it's a 2-generation strategy. We're also helping parents also become more financially literate. Just, through small lessons. We're not just, beating them across the head with it, but just, small lessons that they will get. And sometimes it's as small as, my child has a bank account, I don't. Let me get a bank account too.
Right.
And then, what I've been able to do in the mayor's office by, again, just giving people access to opportunity and access to money with our guaranteed basic income program that's going to launch this year, which I'm super excited about. The families we're going to help, because the families that we're going to help are in a condition where they are too rich for benefits, but yet too poor to do it, to get out of whatever station that they're in. All they need is just a little bit of help. Just a little relief, take a little bit of relief off of that pressure valve, right?
Right.
And an extra $500 a month is gonna be transformational for some of these families. And so I can't wait to watch what happens to the families that we're gonna help.
Let me be a fly on the wall, or maybe inside your brain, inside your heart. What was the timing, the decision making that led you to decide to ever run for office, to ever step into the spotlight? A spotlight, as you mentioned, burned your father, burned brightly. He flew too close to the sun, is all those things, all those sayings. But why on earth did you decide to get into politics?
Yeah, and if you'll ask my dad, he'll tell you why. He told me not to do it.
Ah, yeah.
Because that he had been burned. But as is the case with women, we're asked to run. A lot of times people see things in us that we don't see in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asked to run we're actually asked to fulfill a committee woman's term by Lisa Suggs, who was a Democratic committee woman in the 8th Ward. And she and Kay Gabbard got together and said that, Tishaura should be the next committee woman in the 8th Ward. And I went over to Lisa's house and met her and her husband, and they told me about the job, and I knew it was volunteer at the time. So I said, well, I have nothing else to do. I'm 29 years old. What am I doing with my life? Nothing right now. And it was Robin Wright Jones who actually influenced me to go into paid politics and to run for state rep when she was running for state senate. And that was, I think, when things really changed. And I thought, well, wow, I can really use this to help people, just like I've been using, healthcare, the business of healthcare, to help
Right.
people. And I guess I kind of got bit by the bug. There was some, dormant or latent DNA that was just awakened when I started getting more involved in politics and seeing it as a way to help people and helping the masses by just the policy changes and the things that I advocate for.
And at what point when you step onto that stage and into those roles, do you decide to study leadership. And am I correct in assessing that you have actually studied leadership, and
Yeah.
why?
Because just like, just like with sports and with like basketball players are constantly training in the gym to get better, we have to do the same as leaders. And so I was able to spend 3 weeks at Harvard in the Harvard Kennedy School's executives and state and local leadership program. And I'm still studying now. So I'm in a fellowship now for the Mayor's Institute on City Design at the Graduate School of Design at Harvard, along with Mayor Quentin Lucas and several others, studying how can we be more just in the cities that we design for the future. So it's, bringing together justice involved policies, looking at historical racist policies and how that has marginalized people, and how do we right those wrongs, right those historic wrongs, and design cities that are more just for our populations going forward. Because I realize I don't know everything, so I like to keep smart people around me, i.e. my staff and my cabinet. But also I'd like to go and, I'm a nerd. So I like to just dig into different policies and see what other cities are doing, because a lot of times there are other cities that have solved these problems and we don't have time
Right.
to build new programs. We can just bring something here, tweak it for our environment, and let it roll.
I have been told, and so I say it as well, that, people are literally are dying and waiting on whomever's watching this right now, waiting on you to step into your purpose and waiting on you to do the right thing in your life, because there's a ripple effect,
Mhm.
right? From your life, there's a ripple effect.
Right. Right. There is. I've been blessed to be able to be mayor at such a time as this, at a time when our federal government has so many programs and opportunities available for mayors and governors to help their states and their cities. And a lot of the programs are generated directly for mayors and local governments. And just to have great relationships at the federal level with cabinet members, with the president and the White House, is just very fortunate, because a lot of times it is what you know, but it is also who you know.
What does it mean to you to be the first Black woman to be mayor of St. Louis? What does it mean to you? And um, do you filter things through that as a Black woman? And I feel like that's a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it.
It's not a stupid question at all. I bring every part of my lived experience to this job every day, as a mother, as a single mother, as a Black woman, as a daughter, a sister, and I bring the history of my ancestors and how they came to this city with me every day. How my grandfather couldn't find a job as a union painter in St. Louis, so he had to move to East St. Louis where it was better for him. Where my other grandfather was a butcher and had to escape the Jim Crow South because they were going to lynch him for talking back to a white man who wanted an order that he couldn't fulfill. I bring all of that with me every day, because I know that I'm standing on my ancestors' shoulders. And they never thought at any point that one of their grandchildren would be mayor of the city. I mean, look at this office. This is just,
It's
so
beautiful.
amazing, right? But also the art on the walls tells a story that this office was built at a time that never envisioned me being in it. So I bring all of that with me every day, because I look at policies like, we set up, we used $1 million of ARPA funds to set aside for a program for non-custodial dads. I bring that experience with me as a single mom, knowing some of the struggles that my son's father had at one point during while my son was growing up, and also the struggles of other single parents with non-custodial fathers, and how our child support system is predatory and keeps our non-custodial parents out of the workforce, because of these are bills that they will never earn enough money to pay back. So it's how can I help families get whole by just a simple way of helping dad pay down arrears so he can then continue to work and not get his entire paycheck taken every 2 weeks.
I do follow you on Twitter, and you have been known to take people to task who have said inappropriate things to you. What part of you is that the bold woman in you? Is that the take no prisoners woman in you? Who is that?
That's the woman who is not going to allow anyone to disrespect me in this role. I worked really hard to get here, and I think that deserves respect. Just like anybody else who's worked really hard to get to where they are. And I will admit that that's my mother and my grandmother in me too. That didn't take any mess from anybody.
I like to tell people that my father was a drill sergeant because I always get a reaction like, oh, like that explains it.
Mm-hmm,
Your
yeah.
mother and your grandmother, that
Yeah.
explains it.
Yeah, and my mother, and this is my dad's mother. They were about 5'2" each. And just they taught me how to be a lady, but they also taught me how to speak up for myself.
Tell me something that we don't know about you.
Um,
It might surprise us, maybe.
I'm a nerd and I love the Marvel universe. So all the Marvel movies, anytime I see one on TV, I stop, and that's the rest of the afternoon is gone.
I love it. I also follow you on Facebook. I don't see you every day, but I love Things Aiden Says. I believe that's how you title it, your son.
Stuff Aiden Says.
Stuff. He is now, is he not 6'2"?
6'5".
6'5". Oh my gosh. And he's
15.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and still the love of my life. Still the love of my life.
He's old enough now, and I know that when the shooting happened at Visual and Performing Arts, he checked on you that day. You told us that. And that was recent. So he was a teenager when that happened. So aware of all circumstances that you are in as the mayor, certainly as his mother. Does he express worry to you about you?
No, not really. He also knows that, I have protection through the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, which I do think is one of the best police departments in the country, based on how we responded to the Central Visual and Performing Arts tragedy. But he also has a good relationship with my security detail.
Oh, good.
And he tells me sometimes if something happens, I'm going to call them first.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing he has numbers. Yes.
Yes.
What's your hope for him as a mom? Because you're a mom first.
Yes, I am a mom first and foremost. And my hope for him is that I really hope that he goes to an HBCU to pursue his basketball career, but I don't know if I'm going to win that battle. He wants to go to a D1 school, and I remind him that Hampton is a D1 school, and there are a lot of HBCUs that are D1 schools. And I'd like for him to come back to St. Louis at some point and raise his family. And I would like to use this time as mayor to change the environment where he would want to come back to St. Louis and raise his family.
One last question for you before I let you go, and it's been such a joy to talk to you for so long. I know how busy you are. I feel like you travel to parts of St. Louis, Missouri, and you can tell transformation is happening because you can see it. And then other parts, transformation's waiting. And then other parts, transformation has not started at all. What's your sense of where we are right now for the city of St. Louis in 2023?
And this year, we are setting the stage for transformation to happen. We have launched the Economic Justice Action Plan, and that is a $250 million investment from ARPA. That's almost half of our ARPA funds. to use that as a down payment to attract more private and philanthropic investment. Our goal is to attract investment up to $1 billion to invest in North St. Louis in 17 specific projects, and a couple in South St. Louis as well. And we are investing in specific projects to make sure that, you know, those projects are catalysts for investment around them. For the Urban League is one of those projects. We want the Urban League to be a shining star in North St. Louis, and develop the land that surrounds the Urban League with more commercial development, more retail, more residential, and also making sure that we use we can have change that people can see and feel in their neighborhood. So it's not just about brick and mortar, but it's also investing in people. It's workforce development and other opportunities. It's the Northside Economic Empowerment Center at Sumner High School that also holds our Office of Violence Prevention, because we realize that the change on our criminal justice system has to happen in community and with community, and that law enforcement are a partner, but not always leading that change. And it's I'm just super excited about all of the changes that we see. And then, you know, when we look at downtown, this is the last point, we're about to have year-round sports with soccer,
Right.
XFL, hockey, and baseball. Downtown's going to be popping
Yeah.
all the time. So I'm excited to see restaurants and hopefully more retail come back to downtown. And for those who think that, you know, I'm only paying attention to North St. Louis, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can pay attention to neighborhoods that are already built up and get them the things that they need, by also paying attention to areas that have been abandoned for decades, because St. Louis can't be all it's supposed to be if over half of it has been left to fail.
Right. Little story. I did have one more thing. Can you speak to that 10-year-old girl, the girl who wanted to be a model? What would you say to her today as you sit in the grand mayor's office in the city of St. Louis?
I would say that at 10-year-old little girl, you can be whatever you want to be as long as you work hard at it. And you will have adversity. Things won't always work out the way you think that they should, but just be patient, and God is going to bless you beyond belief.
She is the first Black woman to be mayor of the city of St. Louis. Mayor Tishaura Jones, you are indeed living history. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yes, it was. And thank you so much for indulging me with so much time. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Carol, anytime. And all the best to your family.
You as well. You as well. I want to see a book. Stuff Aiden Says. Are you working on it?
No, I haven't.
You should. Let me stop this recording here.